Much like many of you, I've loved Pokemon ever since I was a little kid. But these days, Pokemon kind of just, sucks. Now, I know, I gotta be careful here, because last time I had a Nintendo opinion, the response was a bit mixed, to say the least. But just hear me out on this one. Like I said, I'm not some new-gen LARPer when it comes to the Pokemon franchise. One of my first introductions to Pokemon as a kid was actually Pokemon cards from one of my uncle's collections that me and my cousin would go through all the time. And it just kind of went from there. I learned about the original anime and watched that a lot. From there I went towards the games, with my first game being Pokémon Stadium for the Nintendo 64, which I would say is a great game and a good example of 3D Pokemon done right, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, I've been into Pokemon since I was a kid, which is why I'm kind of passionate now about the state of the Pokemon franchise, which has to be the biggest waste of potential ever. My first actual mainline Pokemon game was Pokemon Sun and Moon for the 3DS. This was a game that I played a lot and really enjoyed. I would spend hours just doing the wonder trading in the most basic Pokemon ever and getting what I thought was generous legendary Pokemon when it was realistically just hacked Pokemon from random people. Anyways, this was my first real Pokemon game, and by extension my first Pokemon game that I really enjoyed. However, it was also my last Pokemon game that I really enjoyed. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't played most of the Pokemon games, at least in full, especially when it comes to the older ones. But that doesn't mean I can't see the issues with what the franchise is right now. You may be asking yourself, what are these issues? Well, let's just break it down. If I had to label all these issues into one category, it would just be lack of care put into the games. Pokemon is literally the highest grossing franchise of all time. So tell me why this looks like a mobile game. With the absurd amount of money that the Pokemon franchise has, there's no reason the game should be this low quality. Which leads me into my first point, the graphics and optimization, or just overall presentation of these games. By far the worst example of this game was the most recent mainline Pokemon game, that being Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, I will say again, I have not played this game, but that is for a reason this time. This game launched in such a bad state that there were a ton of people reporting crashes, frame rates as low as 20 FPS, and just overall the game was ugly, with these super low quality textures that just make every environment look super flat. What looks like a game from some kind of mobile slop company is actually a game in one of Nintendo's biggest franchises. And before I hear somebody bring up that stupid argument, oh well, it's on Nintendo Switch, so of course it's not gonna look good. Let me just remind you that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is also a Switch game, runs super well, and looks like this. Which means there's no reason for this Pokemon game to run and look so bad, other than just being poorly produced. And if these games are so poorly made, then why do they get away with this? Well, that would be because it's a Pokemon game, and Pokemon fans will gobble up anything the Pokemon company makes and call it a day. There's a huge problem with Pokemon and Nintendo fans in general, where no matter how good or how bad a game is, they do not see any issues with it whatsoever. And if you try to say otherwise, you get hated on for just wanting to call out issues. Even if the cartridge jumped out of the console itself and started stabbing them, they would be begging for more. And really, my issues with the Pokemon games really does just come down to there's not enough effort put into them. Another great example of this, where is the voice acting? I'm not trying to say that every single piece of text in the game needs voice acting, but tell me why the biggest grossing franchise of all time can't at least get voice acting for cutscenes and main story moments. It's not because of money, that's for sure. I mean, there's literally a cutscene in Pokemon Sword and Shield that looks like this. A full concert with zero sound. Who is making these decisions? Going back to what I said in the beginning of this video about Pokemon Stadium and how it's 3D Pokemon done right, what I'm mainly talking about is the battle animations. The Pokemon in this game just have so much more life and personality put into them within the battles. And mind you, this is a game from 1999. Even the narration in this game has actual voice acting, which adds a lot to the battles.
The attack is still continuing. Goodness.
Now, let's compare this to Scarlet and Violet. It just looks so stiff. Some of you may say I'm nitpicking, but I really don't think that I am. It's these tiny little details that take a game from down here to up here. And most people may not notice these things, but when you put them in the game and then take them out, the difference is very clear. And it's just so clear with modern Pokemon that these little attention to details are needed. Now, don't get me wrong, I know there are a lot of Pokemon in the games, and that means a lot of animations that would need to be made. But once again, they have infinite money to be spending on these games. And the problem is that it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the game has a ton of care put into it, or if it's just another slop cash grab. People will buy it no matter what it is. And I won't stand here and pretend that it's all terrible. Some of the modern games are starting to take better steps in the right direction. The open world environments seen in Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, and the Legends games are the perfect thing for a game that's about exploring a region and collecting the Pokemon within it. Open world Pokemon is just absolutely the best thing for the franchise. Now, with something good that comes to Pokemon, something bad must come with it. It's really just the law of equivalent exchange. Like how the open world in Pokemon Legends ZA is literally just one city that you can't leave with PNG buildings. But hey, I do remember Legends Arceus being a lot of fun. And I mean, the upcoming Pokemon Winds and Waves actually looks really good from what they've shown us so far. Another thing is, I think Pokemon just kind of plays it a bit too safe with their games. Sure, we do have some more out there games like Pokken Tournament from a couple years back, but these days the games kind of just blend together in my eyes. Something really cool that I think they could do is the HD 2D style, kind of like Octopath Traveler. I think that would work really well with Pokemon. It would be a really good way to make a game that kind of goes back to its roots, or even just remaster the older ones in this style. And I mean, it's not just Pokemon. Most games these days do tend to play it way too safe, but that's another topic for another day. I just think that Pokemon could really benefit from some more experimentation. Which, to be fair, Pokopia did recently come out, and that game was definitely very different in terms of Pokemon games. And you know, that game was received very well. Pokemon is really just a franchise with so much potential that goes completely unused. All I'm really asking for is a Pokemon game that reaches the standards of what it should be. A game that doesn't feel like some kind of mobile slop game. A game that feels like a well-polished masterpiece like many of Nintendo's other games do. Like Mario, Zelda, and even Donkey Kong don't get this bad of treatment from Nintendo. So why does Pokemon? When it's just as big, if not bigger than those. Anyways, hopefully things do start to take a turn for the better when it comes to Pokemon games. And I'm curious to see what you guys all think of this stuff. I'm sure there's going to be some Pokemon meat riders down in the comments telling me about how terribly wrong I am. But hey, what can I do? Anyway guys, hopefully you did enjoy this video. If so, make sure to leave a like, go down, subscribe, leave a comment, really helps out a lot. Hoping to keep staying consistent with this YouTube stuff. So yeah, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of that. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next video.